Welcome to another session of Coffee Coaching. I'm Andrea Sittig-Rolf, Chief Blitzmaster and CEO of Sittig Incorporated and creator of the Blitz Experience. Are you able to get the first appointment and fill your pipeline with new opportunities, but tend to lose prospects in the follow-through? Do you follow up when prospects ask you to, but then they don't return your calls? Do you wonder how many times you should call a prospect when they don't get back to you right away? Before answering these questions, first, I want to be clear that this advice is based on the assumption that you're working with the right decision makers of qualified prospects. My older, wiser sister says, "Don't quit 5 minutes before the miracle." In other words, if you're not persistent when following up with prospects, you may make a final attempt to contact them just before they're ready to buy. What you described is a common challenge with many salespeople. Most of us are so concerned with being a pest that we err on the side of not being persistent enough. In my experience, it takes anywhere between 4 and 10 attempts at following up after the initial appointment to get a response from the prospect and move to the next level in the sales cycle. Many times, prospects don't get right back to us simply because they're busy. So it's important to be both persistent and patient. There are a few things you can do to increase your likelihood of connecting with your prospect during the follow-through. First and foremost, always send a handwritten thank you note after the first meeting before making any follow-up phone calls or sending any email. If you're able to include an article that's relevant to their business or some other item of interest to them, include that as well. Don't use the thank you note as a means of selling, only to thank the prospect and offer additional valuable information as it relates to them. Call your prospect's cell phone number rather than the office number. When calling the cell number, if you don't reach the prospect and instead get voicemail, don't leave a message. Cell phones list the phone numbers of missed calls, and let's face it, we're curious to know who called when we miss a call from someone who didn't leave a message. If you prefer to leave a voicemail message, tell the prospect you have a couple more questions to ask them, rather than calling to answer any questions they have. If you prefer sending email as a follow-up after the initial meeting and the prospect doesn't respond within a week, send the exact same email again 1 week after sending it the first time. You can keep track of the emails you send in Outlook, either do in a folder or as a to-do in your calendar. Send the same initial follow-up email you sent 3 times, 1 week apart. Usually, by the 3rd time you send it, you'll get a response. Also, try alternating phone calls and sending email so you give the prospect the option of either calling you back or sending an email based on what's easiest for them. Now, there's a limit to how often to follow up and for what length of time to continue following up. If the prospect is completely unresponsive after you've sent the same email 3 times and have left several voicemail messages over a period of a month or more, stop following up for now. If prospects ignore after this many attempts on your part, they're either not interested or something has happened in their business or personal life that's preventing them from getting back to you. It could also be that either they've made a decision to go with another solution, whether it be internal or with one of your competitors, or something in their business that's changed that makes your product or service unnecessary. Before giving up completely on the follow-through, I recommend a couple things. Wait 2 months between your last attempt and your next attempt. Sometimes after time's passed, it may be easier to reach the prospect. Things may have settled in either their personal or business life, and then if that was the reason that they didn't get back to you initially, now maybe they'll return your call. It could be that they still have a need for your product or service, but have simply forgotten about it since meeting with you. And as a final attempt only, you can try a technique I call the takeaway. The takeaway technique leaves it up to the prospect to call you when they're ready to proceed. It goes something like this. Hi, Mr. Prospect. This is Andrea Sittig-Rolf with Sittig Incorporated. I've made several attempts to contact you since our first meeting, and I've not been able to reach you. I understand you're very busy and that you haven't had a chance to get back to me. I won't be contacting you again, so please feel free to contact me when you're ready to proceed with the solution that we discussed. I can be reached at 555-1234. Thanks. Now, I know what you're thinking. This is risky. Yes, it is, and that's why it's designed to only be used as a final attempt. When you've reached the point where it's obvious to you that the prospect is no longer interested or has decided on another solution, Try this technique as a last resort. Thanks for joining us. Join us again for another session of coffee coaching.